Hey there, Seth here again from the Lowen Planetarium. And do you all love the moon? Because I sure do. And so for this lesson, we're going to learn about the moon, and then we'll have you draw your own moon landscape. So real quick, before I fly to the moon digitally, I just want to give you an example of our globe moon here. And this is kind of like an Earth globe, but instead, it's the moon. And of course, the moon is a round object, an object that you've probably seen in the sky going through phases and changing as the moon goes around the Earth once a month. That's how long that takes. The moon is smaller than our planet. It would take 4 of our moons stacked across to make up the size of Earth. So it is a lot smaller than our planet, and it has interesting features on it. And so if we look closely at this globe, you can see names of craters and mountains and valleys, just like names on Earth. And there's these really big dark spots on the moon, which we'll see just a bit digitally, where giant impacts happened and left a whole bunch of cooled lava on the surface. They're called mare. We'll get into that in a second. And so the moon has some very interesting features, and you can see these with your own eyes from Earth. You can see them even without a telescope, just by looking up, especially when the moon is full. You can see all these dark and light areas of different kind of shades of gray, and that's the soil, and there are different types of soil on the surface of the moon. So it's a very interesting place, and it's kind of fun to play with this globe. And we only see one side of the moon. We don't see the other side because the moon is always facing us in the same way. And so it's called synchronous rotation. It's kind of a fun term. But anyway, let's explain that more digitally and fly to the moon. And then we'll talk about the art project that you can all do. All right, so now we are in our digital universe, and we can now fly to the moon and talk a little bit more about it. And of course, right now we're looking at our beautiful planet Earth from space. And we'll target the moon, and it's so amazing to know that we've been there before. We've launched people to the moon, and 12 astronauts landed on the moon a while back, actually. And when they flew, it took them 3 days to get to the moon. So we can take a little bit less time than 3 days, luckily, and we can make our way there. So now we have made it to our digital moon. What you see in our software, and this is software that we use in our Lowen Planetarium. Usually this is on the big dome on the ceiling, but we're able to put this on a normal flat screen for you to enjoy. This is great. And so these are real pictures of our moon taken by a spacecraft called the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. So if you look here, here's my mouse, you can see these kind of faint lines going across. Those are actually the pictures that have been stitched together, and so sometimes the lines still show up along the moon's surface. So normally those wouldn't be there, but that's just from the pictures and how they line them up, the scientists line them up. But anyway, you can really see the gray surface. The moon's actually very dark. It does not reflect much light. It's actually a very bad reflector. But since it's the brightest thing in our sky, of course reflected light from the sun, that is, right? The moon doesn't make its own light. But since it's reflecting more than the dark space around it, it makes the moon look really, really bright in our sky. And like I said earlier, the moon is about a quarter of the size of Earth, so you'd have to line up 4 moons next to each other to make up Earth's size. And as we fly closer to it, you can see all these interesting features. See those round circle things? Those, of course, are called craters. Those are from rocks that have been smashing on the moon for a long time. But then a real long time ago, really big asteroids and objects flying through space hit the moon and made these giant craters, or impact basins, we call them. And that's what these giant round things are. Okay, there's a really big one here too. And so these things, they got hit so hard, the surface, the ground on the moon turned to lava, and then it cooled down and left behind these really kind of flatter, smoother areas. So the dark areas are a bit newer than the brighter areas. Look at the brighter areas and look how many craters are on them from rocks that have been hitting them over time. But the dark areas are a lot newer, so a little bit more untouched compared to these bright areas. The bright areas are called the Lunar Highlands, like mountainous areas. These are the low areas that are flatter, and again we call these mare. That means sea in Latin language. It means sea because a long time ago people thought those were bodies of water. They thought they were seas, and so it was given the name mare. And so they have names. So this is Mare Serenitatis, which means the Sea of Serenity. And this one's real famous. This is Mare Tranquillitatis, Sea of Tranquility. And see down in this area here, I can actually show you. Let's zoom in. We can get real close to that part of the moon. That's where Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed back in 1969, now over 50 years ago. They landed in their lunar module. Isn't that amazing? On the surface of the moon, which is about roughly 238,000 miles away from us. And this is the only side we see. We cannot see the other side unless you took a spacecraft, flew around it, or the astronauts got to see it. When they were flying around the moon, they could see the far side of the moon. So we only see one side of the moon here from planet Earth. And the moon, of course, changes too through the month because the sun hits the moon at different angles. Let's try something out here. Let's see if I can lock this. And I'm going to speed time kind of quickly. We're going to go through the phases of the moon. So let's see if we can do this nicely here. And so watch one side of the moon start to go into shadow. We'll see the right side of the moon. So we're going through what's called gibbous shape. That's more than half full. We're waning right now. Then it will be half full. This is called last quarter. Then it's a waning crescent, and then a new moon when the back side of the moon is being lit up. See how the back side is lit by the sun? There's the sun shining on the back side that you can't see from our planet. And so that's a new moon. And then as we continue to go around, you'll see this side start to light up, the right side, into first a crescent. It's called a waxing crescent. Let's try that out. We're going to go farther and farther here. There we go. So now the sun's swinging around. So there you go, waxing crescent there. Okay. And then it will be half full, which is first quarter. Then it's waxing gibbous, more than half full. Just a little bit of night side on that side of the moon there. And then all the way to a full moon back around. That takes about a month for that to happen. That's where our month comes from. Very, very cool. So you can watch these patterns and cycles in the sky, watch the phase of the moon. Even better if you have binoculars or a telescope, take a look at the moon. But for your activity in this lesson, this is kind of a simple one, but all you're going to need is a pencil and a piece of paper and maybe some type of round thing like a plate or something. You can make a nice round circle. And what we'll have you do is draw the moon. And we have a picture we're going to supply to you that's in a link that shows you the moon and some of the labels and names for the surface of the moon. So try your hand at drawing the moon. Draw some of these dark areas, these mare, these old ancient impact basins that filled with lava that cool down. Maybe these brighter areas you can kind of color a lighter gray, and these are a darker gray. So even a pencil will allow you to do this. But if you have crayons that are darker colored or colored pencils or markers, you could do it. And then maybe label them too. There are different craters with various names that you can label as well. And so it's a fun little activity to kind of learn more about the moon. And even in the sky, you can trace out, as the moon goes through phases, depending on the time of the year, and you could watch the phase of the moon change each night as the moon goes around the Earth. So try your hand out on drawing the moon. Again, a piece of paper, a pencil, and something circular to draw a nice circle, and try to label the moon using the linked image that we'll have available to you. All right, good luck with your lunar drawings and your lunar viewing, and we'll see you again soon.